The night my own family decided I was disposable started long before anyone said it out loud. I was 25 when everything finally exploded, but the fuse had been burning since childhood. I grew up with my younger sister in a quiet Midwestern suburb where nothing dramatic was supposed to happen. Two stories, peeling blue paint, a father who always promised he'd fix the house next summer, and a mother running a small catering business out of our kitchen. We weren't rich, we weren't desperate, just ordinary. Except we weren't. From the moment my sister was born, the rules changed. She breathed, and my parents applauded. I achieved something, and it barely registered. If she failed a test, it was pressure, and she tried. If I brought home top grades, it was a nod at best. She once set the toaster on fire, actual flames licking the cabinets, and my parents laughed like it was a charming story they'd tell later. I learned early that fighting it was pointless. I kept my head down. School, baseball, weekends with friends playing video games and talking about nothing important. I told myself favoritism was annoying, not dangerous. I was wrong. When my sister turned 17, she started dating a guy who set off alarms in my head instantly. No job, no plans, no direction. He hovered instead of standing, watched instead of engaging. The kind of person whose presence made rooms feel smaller. My sister called him exciting, misunderstood. I called him a future problem. It didn't take long for that feeling to grow teeth. I spotted him one afternoon at a mall with a friend, lingering near the gaming section, eyes darting, hands never still. He wasn't shopping, he was waiting. Another time, he bragged about a brand new phone he was moving cheap. The smile he wore when he said it wasn't casual, it was proud. Like he wanted credit for not getting caught. I wasn't naive. I knew exactly what kind of person he was. So I did the responsible thing. I told my parents. I sat them down after dinner and explained what I'd seen. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't accuse. I just said I thought this guy was bad news, that he was stealing, that he was dragging my sister somewhere she didn't want to go. My mother laughed, said I was jealous, asked why I couldn't just be happy for my sister instead of inventing problems because I didn't have a girlfriend. My father waved it off and said my sister was smart enough to handle herself. The conversation ended there. What made it worse was that they usually hated her boyfriends, tore them apart for minor things. But this one they defended, blindly. My sister changed fast. The secrecy came first, then the money going missing. Late nights, stories that didn't line up, the kind of lies that weren't polished yet, still rough around the edges. And somehow, none of it mattered. He'd pull up outside after midnight, honking instead of knocking, and my parents would let her run out without question. He'd show up to family dinners, glass-eyed, jittery, clearly not sober, and they'd pretend not to notice. I once overheard him talking about a job that paid too well for too little effort. The tone told me everything. I remember standing in the hallway that night, listening, realizing something unsettling. It didn't matter what he did. As long as my sister said it was fine, it would always be fine. And that's when I understood that if things went wrong, and they would, I already knew who my parents would believe. I just didn't realize how badly they'd make sure I paid for it. There was a moment, months before everything collapsed, when I caught him red-handed. It was past 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep, headset on, game paused, staring at the glow of my monitor when something outside my window moved. I looked up and saw him, my sister's boyfriend, leaning into our neighbor's car, working the door with some kind of thin metal tool. Not fumbling, not confused, focused, calm, like he'd done it before. I confronted him the next day. He smiled and said he was just checking if they locked their car, claimed he was worried about their safety. Didn't even sound nervous when he lied. I told my parents again. Nothing happened. My mom said I was stirring drama. My dad told me to keep my nose out of other people's business. My sister jumped in instantly, said he was probably grabbing something she'd left in their car, which made no sense because she'd never even been inside it. That was when I realized logic didn't matter anymore. By early spring, things escalated fast. I remember the timing because it was right after my birthday. I was working nights at a warehouse, trying to save for community college. I'd get home late, unwind with a few hours of gaming, then crash. That routine was the only stable thing in my life. Then objects started vanishing. First my mom's jewelry, not costume stuff, sentimental pieces, a gold necklace from her grandmother, rings she never took off. She was upset but convinced herself she'd misplaced them. Then my dad's watch disappeared. A good one, something he was proud of. He accused me, said I must have taken it because I was always asking for money. I wasn't. I had a job. I paid my own expenses. After that, electronics vanished, the iPad, my mom's work laptop, still no signs of a break-in, no forced doors, nothing disturbed, which meant whoever was taking things didn't need to sneak in. I started watching my sister more closely. She flinched whenever the missing items came up, started locking her bedroom door, something no one in our house had ever done, and her boyfriend suddenly stopped coming around. Then came the morning everything ended. I was getting ready for work when I heard screaming upstairs, real screaming. I ran toward it, heart racing, thinking someone was hurt. My sister was standing in my parents' doorway, shaking, pointing straight at me, tears streaming. My parents rushed in behind me, and she performed. She claimed she'd been staying up late studying. She never studied, and had seen me sneaking into their room at night. Multiple times. Said she was too scared to say anything before, but it was getting out of control. She had details, too many. She knew exactly where things were taken from, which shelf, which drawer, which box, the jewelry, the watch, all of it. I tried to explain. Told them I was at work during most of those nights. I had time cards. I had online logs. Friends who could confirm I was gaming with them after shifts. They didn't look at any of it. I pointed out the obvious, asked why none of her belongings were missing, asked how she knew such specific locations, asked why there were no signs of forced entry if I was supposedly sneaking around at night. Every time I spoke, my father shut me down. He started yelling about how he always knew something was wrong with me. My mom cried, saying she couldn't believe her own son would do this. My sister stood there, sobbing on cue. At one point, I heard her phone buzz in her pocket. Then my dad gave me a choice: confess and return everything, or leave. I told him I couldn't return what I didn't take. That's when he snapped. He grabbed trash bags and started throwing my things into them: clothes, electronics, everything. Told me I had 1 hour to get out. And while I was packing my life into garbage bags, I heard something I'll never forget. Laughter from my sister's room. Muffled, but clear. She was on the phone, laughing. My mom stayed in the kitchen, crying, doing nothing. My dad kept shoving bags toward the door, and that was the moment I understood something permanent had broken. Not because they believed her, but because they never even considered believing me. They didn't just believe her, they policed me. My parents followed me through the house like I was dangerous, watched my hands, checked rooms after I passed through. After 19 years of straight grades, no trouble, no records, they decided I was some kind of calculated thief who'd been playing the long game. I tried to find one adult who might listen. I called my aunt first. She didn't even let me finish a sentence. My sister had already reached her, voice shaking, story polished, saying she was afraid of me. Within 2 days, the story spread like poison. Cousins, family friends, people who'd known me my entire life suddenly looked at me like I was unstable. By the time I was forced out of that house, I had nothing. No plan, no safety net. Just a car, a few trash bags, and the sick realization that my entire identity had been rewritten without me in the room. I sat in my car for hours that night, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to understand how fast everything had collapsed. Tomorrow didn't exist anymore, just the weight of it all pressing down. I slept in a Walmart parking lot for 2 nights. Eventually, my friend Brandon's family let me crash on their couch. I had to quit my warehouse job because the commute was impossible. My savings evaporated trying to survive those first weeks. Brandon's parents were kind, but their house was small. Too small. His mom would make extra food and say I was welcome to stay, but I could see the stress in her face when bills came in. I applied everywhere. 20 jobs, maybe more. Nothing. Word had spread. Even places that sounded interested would suddenly stop responding after checking references. Thanks, Mom and Dad. After a while, I moved to Mike's place. Same story, different couch, same shame. 2 months of bouncing between friends, making myself invisible, waiting until everyone was asleep to use the bathroom, keeping all my things in my car so I wouldn't take up space, leaving early, coming back late, pretending I wasn't desperate. My break came from someone who barely knew me. Mike's older brother mentioned a job at a small auto shop in the next town. Phones. Scheduling, data entry, minimum wage. I said yes before he finished the sentence. The owner didn't care about my past, said if Mike's brother trusted me, that was enough. He even let me sleep in the break room for a few weeks until I could afford a deposit. I rented a tiny studio above a Chinese restaurant. 1 room, hot plate, bathroom barely bigger than a closet, but it was mine. From there, I rebuilt, slowly, promoted to service advisor. New coworkers who didn't know my history. Online classes when I could afford them. Nights eating cheap noodles, counting every dollar. making sure the lights stayed on, and my family, they lived like I'd never existed. No calls, no questions, no concern. I could have vanished completely, and they wouldn't have noticed. I saw on social media that my sister got into college. My parents bought her a car. Smiling photos, proud captions. Meanwhile, I was rationing groceries. Then karma finally knocked. Quietly. Her boyfriend got arrested, caught breaking into cars at the mall. No dramatic chase. Just security watching him mess with a door and calling the cops while he stood there like an idiot. Exactly what I'd warned them about. My sister dumped him immediately, posted a long message about escaping a toxic relationship, turned herself into the victim. My parents praised her courage, ate it up. I stared at those posts, phone shaking in my hand, realizing something that hurt more than being thrown out. Even when the truth came out, it still didn't come with my name cleared. And that's when I knew. They didn't just choose her over me, they erased me on purpose. They rewrote history without me in it. Online, my sister became the miracle child. Long posts about how proud my mother was of her strong, amazing daughter. My father shared photos of game nights and vacations, captions full of gratitude and family pride. Sometimes I'd stare at the screen and wonder if they'd genuinely forgotten they had a son. Relatives reached out occasionally, telling me to apologize, to come home. My cousin liked to say that everyone makes mistakes and family is forever. I never answered the obvious question. What exactly was I supposed to be sorry for? So I stopped engaging. I focused on surviving, on work, on classes, on building something that didn't depend on people who'd already proven how easily they could erase me. That's when Dave really became my anchor. The shop owner wasn't loud or sentimental. He just showed up, taught me how engines actually work, how payroll works, how to deal with customers without losing your dignity. He never pried, never assumed, treated me like a person worth investing in. In a lot of ways, he became the father figure I didn't realize I'd been missing. And then Emma walked into the shop. First time I saw her, she was arguing on the phone about code like her life depended on it. Software developer, smart, intense. I messed up her paperwork because I couldn't focus. She teased me about it and kept coming back anyway, despite there being closer shops near her place. We talked while her car was being serviced, about work, about life, about things that actually mattered. One day her car died a couple miles away and she called the shop in a panic. I went to get her. We grabbed lunch while waiting on repairs and talked for 3 straight hours. That was it. We took things slow. I was guarded, embarrassed by my tiny studio above a Chinese restaurant, by the smell of fried rice that never left, by the absence of family in my life. When I finally told her everything, about my sister, my parents, she didn't defend them, didn't minimize it. She listened. The first time she came over, I was terrified. She smiled, looked around, and said it reminded her of her first apartment in college. Meant it. Her family was the opposite of mine in every way that mattered. Her mom hugged me like I'd always belonged. Her dad taught me how to grill because no one had ever let me near one before. Her brother treated me like I was already family. Holidays, dinners, no conditions. Work improved too. Dave promoted me after I finished my business courses. I made enough to move us into a real apartment, 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen. We adopted a cat. For the first time, life felt stable. Then we got engaged. We weren't planning anything big, just something small with people who actually knew us. Emma posted about it, excited. That's all it took. The messages started immediately. Relatives saying my parents were hurt, they found out online. My mother telling everyone I was breaking her heart. My father accusing me of being immature, of holding on to the past. My sister posting about missing her brother and wanting to heal. I didn't block them. I saved everything. Good thing I did, because the story kept changing. First I was misremembering, then they were teaching responsibility. Then I was hurting my sister by dredging up old misunderstandings. Then my sister emailed me. She said she was in therapy, that she wanted to make amends, that she had something important to tell me about what really happened back then. Emma immediately said it was a trap. I agreed to meet anyway. Public place, daytime. Emma stayed in her car nearby, just in case. They arrived late, all 3 of them. My dad tried to hug me. I stepped back. My mom cried before sitting down. My sister studied the menu like it held secrets of the universe. We sat there in silence for 5 minutes while the waitress hovered. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. And that's when I realized this wasn't an apology meeting. It was a negotiation. My father started with a speech, the kind people give when they don't want to apologize. He talked about time, about healing, about how blood is thicker than anything else, about how families survive when they choose unity. I stared at the table, thinking about the night they chose unity over me and threw my life into trash bags. Then my sister began to cry. Right on cue. She pressed her hands to her face, voice shaking, saying she had to tell me something important, something she'd been carrying for years. And that's when the truth finally came out. 6 years too late. Her boyfriend had stolen everything, all of it, the jewelry, the watch, the electronics. He'd been doing it for months. He'd eventually been caught breaking into another house and confessed to a string of thefts, including ours. I already knew that part. What I didn't know was this. My parents found out 2 weeks after they kicked me out, 2 weeks after I slept in my car, 2 weeks after they let the entire family believe I was a criminal. They knew the truth and chose to bury it. Why? To protect my sister. They were worried that if people found out her boyfriend was the thief, it would damage her future, that it would make her look bad. So they decided I was expendable, that I'd land on my feet, because I always did. My mother said they did what they thought was best. My father claimed they meant to tell me sooner, but time got away from them. 6 years got away from them. My sister's excuse was worse. She said she was scared of her boyfriend back then, scared enough to let me be blamed. And then she stayed quiet because she was embarrassed and didn't know how to tell the truth. I asked one question. If I hadn't gotten engaged, would you ever have told me? Silence. That was my answer. Then they acted like the confession fixed everything. My father started talking about walking my sister down the aisle at my wedding. My mother mentioned helping with planning. My sister asked if she could be in the wedding party. That's when something in me snapped. I told them exactly what those 6 years looked like. Sleeping in parking lots, losing my job, being branded a thief, rationing food while they bought my sister a car, being told by relatives that I should apologize. My mother said we couldn't change the past and needed to move forward as a family. My father pulled the "we're still your parents" card. My sister repeated, "I'm sorry," like it was a magic word. I told them none of them were invited. My father exploded, said he had a right to be at his son's wedding. I laughed, asked him where that right was when he threw me out, where it was during the holidays they celebrated without me, the birthdays they ignored. They got louder. My mother sobbed. My sister started dragging strangers into it, looking for sympathy. And then my fiancé walked in. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She just looked at them and said calmly, "It's time for you to leave." They went quiet. As we stood up to go, my sister grabbed my arm and said they'd come to the wedding anyway. That family belongs together. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her security would remove them if they tried. My mother wailed. My father threatened to tell their version of the story. I told him to go ahead. I had nothing left to hide. We left. My fiancé drove because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I didn't even realize I was crying until we got home and our cat waddled over, concerned for once in his lazy life. After that, my family went nuclear. Public posts, messages, accusations about ungrateful children and broken-hearted parents. We hired security for the wedding. Good thing we did, because they tried to force their way in 3 separate times. And that was when I understood something clearly. They didn't want forgiveness. They wanted access. They didn't stop at being uninvited. They tried to break in. The first attempt was almost laughable, if it hadn't been so desperate. One of the women from my fiancé's side noticed a stranger hovering near the service entrance, whispering to staff. Security caught her mid-lie. She claimed she was a close friend of the bride from college. The problem? Every actual close friend was already inside, seated, accounted for. When security asked for her name, she panicked. That's when they saw my parents waiting just outside, hoping she'd open the door for them. Strike one. The second attempt was more aggressive. My father showed up at the main entrance in a suit, shoulders back, acting like the place belonged to him. He told security he was the groom's father and that his name had to be on the list. When they checked and didn't find it, he started raising his voice, complaining about respect, about how much he'd given me growing up. Funny how those speeches never mentioned the years I spent sleeping in my car. Strike two. The third attempt happened during the ceremony. Right as vows were about to begin, the side door burst open. My mother rushed in, crying loudly, shouting that she had a right to see her child get married. Right behind her was my sister, wearing that same fake concern, pretending to calm her down while clearly fueling the chaos. The room froze. Then my father-in-law stood up. He didn't shout, didn't argue. He looked straight at them and told them to leave. When they refused, security moved in immediately. My mother sobbed the entire way out, screaming about humiliation, as if crashing a wedding wasn't humiliating enough. And then they called the police. They claimed they were being unfairly excluded from a family event. The officers listened, checked the guest list, and made it very clear they were lucky no one was pressing charges for trespassing. Despite all of that, the wedding was beautiful. My wife was radiant. Her vows broke people, in the best way. My closest friend stood beside me and spoke about loyalty, about choosing each other when blood fails you. Her family welcomed me fully. Her mother even called me her son in front of everyone. The next morning, my phone exploded. Messages calling me heartless, accusations of cruelty. My aunt wrote about my mother crying all night. My sister posted about betrayal and forgiveness, and how she was watching her only brother choose bitterness. That's when we stopped staying quiet. One post, one explanation: the theft, the lie, the years of silence, everything. Then we blocked anyone who didn't need to be in our lives anymore. Some relatives apologized after reading it. Turns out the story they'd been told left out a few inconvenient facts. The rest doubled down. Even now, they still play victims. They tell people I chose revenge over reconciliation, that I'm punishing someone for old mistakes. They've started whispering about my mental health, about how I'm traumatized and unstable. We bought a house, built a life, cut the noise. And for the first time, I'm not waiting for them to understand, because the truth doesn't need their permission anymore. Her letter said the same things as before, just wrapped in therapy language: accountability, healing, growth, triggers, boundaries, different words, same reality. There were a few new details this time, though. She admitted her boyfriend hadn't just been stealing back then. He'd been dealing drugs. She knew. Worse, she was using too. That was the real reason she panicked, not fear for me. Fear of our parents finding out what she was actually involved in. She wrote that she was clean now, that she was doing the work. Good for her. It didn't change a single thing. People kept asking in the comments about legal options. We did talk to a lawyer friend of my wife's. Technically, there could be charges, the thefts, the false accusation, but the statute of limitations makes it messy. And honestly, I don't want revenge. I want distance, silence, peace. The best part of all this has been watching how my real family handled it. My wife's family didn't hesitate. Weekly dinners, group chats I didn't have to earn my way into. Her grandmother accidentally cooking too much and insisting we take leftovers. Her parents treating me like I'd always belonged. Work kept moving forward too. Last month I was promoted again, regional manager, 3 new locations. Real responsibility, real trust. My friends never left. Weekly game nights, no questions, no conditions. It's the family I thought I had growing up. Except this one is real. I did get a message from a cousin telling me to be the bigger person and rebuild bridges. I told him those bridges weren't burned. They were destroyed when my parents chose to let me be homeless for 6 years. He said I was exaggerating. I blocked him. Then came the reunion invite. They sent it to my wife's work email. Creative, I'll give them that. The card talked about forgiveness, about healing old wounds, about how family is forever. We already had plans. Japan, tickets booked. Someone asked if I missed them. I missed the version of them I thought existed, the family I believed I had before everything fell apart. But that family never really existed. The real one showed itself when it mattered, and it chose to protect my sister and her boyfriend instead of me. So this is where things stand. No contact, no drama, no explanations. Just a life built with people who actually care. My wife jokes that I should write a book about all this. Maybe. For now, telling it here feels like enough. If anyone reading this is dealing with a toxic family, hear this. It gets better. But not because they change. It gets better when you do. When you stop waiting for them to become something they never were and start building a family out of people who choose you. Blood doesn't mean much. How people treat you means everything.